Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Rain Whalen.
And I'm Mr. Balloon Hands.
Okay. I honestly feel like that wasn't worth it.
It is worth it. Because people who know drinking out of cups, they're going to lose their minds.
Fucking Mr. Balloon Hands.
Balloon Hands. So, yeah. So, yeah. People are, who love, ancient YouTube videos.
I mean, we did bring that up in fucking, season 9 when we did,
Demolition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that season 9? Yes.
I don't know.
Yes, it was. Yeah, because that's the same season we did fucking Dear Zachary, which I still think I've still fully recovered from.
You never will. Especially if you're like me and liked the page, the official page on Facebook, because it'll tell you when Zachary's birthday is or when Andrew's birthday is. You know?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, twice a year
Oh, man. Well, welcome back, everyone. So, before we jump into everything, so we saw some movies over the weekend. I mean, we saw them separately, obviously.
And they're different.
And I definitely want to shout out mine. I'm sure you probably definitely want to shout out yours. So Ashley and I saw Thunderbolts over the weekend. And it was really good. Like I was thoroughly impressed. I think everything I've read is that it's like a back to basics kind of thing for Marvel, and I would agree. The stakes weren't like world ending ish. Like you kind of have to see the movie to understand, but like it was really good. I mean, the ensemble was their chemistry was like unmatched. It was really cool. And fucking Lewis Pullman, dude. Fucking Lewis Pullman. When we left the theater, Ashley was like, she's like, that name sounds familiar. I was like, yeah, because his dad is Bill Pullman, who I love dearly.
Is that true?
And she was like, yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and she was like, Bill Pullman. I was like, the dad from Casper, which we watched last Halloween. She was like,
listen.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Can I tell you? I would say 90% of people listening to this know who Bill Pullman is. Couldn't in a million years have guessed that you would have went with, he's the dad from Casper.
Yeah, they probably would have been the president from Independence Day.
That's Bill Pullman.
or for our David Lynch fans out there, fucking Lost Highway,
That's right.
It has to be one of my favorite.
So crazy.
Dude, fucking Casper's great, all right? And Bill Pullman, you would believe that he legitimately was Christina Ricci's father.
Yeah.
Like, but we're talking about Casper. Thunderbolts. Yeah, Thunderbolts was great. I felt like everyone really got a chance to shine. Like, it wasn't one of those ensemble movies where like, it's like, oh, you kind of underutilized that actor. No, I think everyone really got a chance to shine and like really showcase their talents. Wyatt Russell also. I mean, everyone was great. Of course, the whole reason why we really wanted to see it was Florence Pugh. But it was great. I'd highly recommend it. Ashley gave it a little bit higher rating of mine. I gave it an 8 out of 10. Solid movie. I would definitely pay money to go see it again. Ashley gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Whoa. She really enjoyed it.
That's Sebastian Stan. That's that 0.5.
Yeah, I think his little T2 Judgment Day mini shotgun flip. She was like, that's half a point right there.
Yeah. Man, he went from knife flip to gun flip. It's pretty cool.
Well, and he does his signature knife flip later in the movie too. Yeah, dude. Sebastian Stan is like, he was really pulling out all his greatest hits from the last 10 years of playing Bucky.
Yeah.
But the movie you saw over the weekend, I desperately want to see.
Yeah. I saw Sinners this weekend, and it's incredible. I loved the music. Obviously, everyone is doing incredible work. Ryan Coogler. Listen, I don't know if the Russo brothers listen to this show. But hey, Russos, this is how you make a movie not in the MCU. Is you do a good job, and like I don't know, man. Ryan Coogler, man, he just gets it. Like it's so good, and he's doing some really interesting things, and he's using, his culture, and he's using history, and he's using other people's culture and history, and he's creating this lore and this backstory to these characters, and the lore to. Sorry, I have no idea. I don't know if you can hear that. I have no idea what they're doing over there. So our friend Kelsey is here, and Haley's hanging out with Kelsey. It's amazing, and true to Coogler form, the villain is not just evil for evil's sake. We have a clear cut motivation for everybody involved, and it's just great. I can't sing its praises enough. I think once you see it, you're going to be upset that the soundtrack's not on vinyl yet. We gotta wait a while for that, because I went to the AMC and a gift card at the Frisco Mall, and there was a Barnes and Noble underneath it downstairs, and I immediately went to the Barnes and Noble. I was like, this soundtrack has to be on vinyl, right? Not yet. It's incredible. It's great.
Yeah, from the first trailer when it was first announced, I was like, dude, I'm sold. Let's go, dude. Because I think Michael B. Jordan, I think when he's given really good material, I think he really has progressed as an actor. And fucking Ryan Coogler, man, I've never seen Creed. Kind of want to now, but yeah, Russos. Look, guys, you've given us some of the best MCU movies. We know they're listening. Yeah. And look, I'm excited for Doomsday. Just don't fuck it up, okay? Like, for me, the one exception was Cherry. Cherry has a low Rotten Tomatoes score, but Cherry is such a fantastic fucking movie.
I liked Cherry. I'll give you that, because I don't get what all the hate is. For Cherry, I thought it was really good. But yeah, agreed. Man, I mean, with Coogler, man, I don't know. He's so good. Fruitvale Station was the first movie I ever saw.
Yeah.
And it's, man, holy shit. Yeah. Sinners. I hope he does more movies like this. I don't want more Sinners. Like, I think the story is complete and it's fine and it should stay where it's at. But I want more genre pictures from Coogler, I think.
From Coogler. Well, I mean, everyone in Hollywood is talking about that deal that he made with Warner Brothers, this almost unprecedented deal that he got to be able to make Sinners.
Yeah.
I don't know all the ins and outs, but everyone's saying that, like, he pulled something off that no one's been able to pull off in, like, years, apparently. Yeah, man, I desperately want to see Sinners. Like I mentioned off mic, Ashley was willing to go see it after we saw Thunderbolts, because we were seeing Thunderbolts fairly early in the evening, and she was like, the Synergy has a 10:55 showing, and I almost said yes, but I was like, man, like I don't want to be tired. I don't want anything to impede what I'm gonna see. And I made the right call, in my opinion, because by the time we got home by like 10ish, I was exhausted. I was like, let's just chill. But yeah, I still want to see it, and hopefully we will. I mean, I know it's coming back to theaters for a little bit.
Cool.
For select theaters, that is. But here's hoping that we can see it. But With that being said, so Jeremy, you're ready to jump into the episode?
Yeah, might as well.
Even though everyone pretty much knows what we're doing because it's right behind you, but
Yeah.
I will remind everyone. So if you tuned in last week, which apparently a lot of you did, on Sundays is doing pretty good on
Is it?
YouTube right now. Yeah, it's got 29 views.
Oh shit! I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, dude, it's doing pretty good. So for those of you who did tune in, this week we are discussing specifically the 1942 version of Charlie Chaplin's silent film, The Gold Rush. I know I mentioned it a little bit last week when we did Chaplin. We got to see a little bit of how the Gold Rush was being made, but of course, as I'm sure we also talked about in Chaplin, Richard Attenborough and the screenwriters didn't want to, I guess, focus too much on his movie making process and focused more on his personal life.
Yeah.
Which I guess is also compelling, but I feel like his movie making process was just important. But
well, and back then, so it's not entirely Attenborough's fault because back then that stuff is secret. You know, I saw years ago an animation going around from modern times with Chaplin in the shopping mall, and he's on his roller skates, and he keeps barely missing the edge of this balcony, and he doesn't realize how close he's getting to it. And so that's where the tension of the comedy comes from, him just like roller skating around and getting extremely close to the edge of this balcony with no railing. And and so, but anyway, the animation is it pulled back and it was showing the glass painting that is right in front of the camera lens that's covering this empty space in the studio, and making forced perspective, making it look like. And honestly, that is most likely, I would say, 98% accurate. But you can't be 100% sure because they didn't talk about that kind of stuff then, because they didn't want other people to take they didn't want other people to have their skills. It wasn't as now it doesn't matter. I don't know what changed, but now it's like, who cares? Anybody can use anything. Nothing is proprietary. Nothing is sacred. But it was, filmmaking was new, relatively, and honestly, like, I don't even think people really. I don't want to say I don't think people cared because I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't widely discussed or analyzed or anything like that. The how.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that makes sense. But we're not talking about Chaplin. So, well, I mean, we are, but not the movie Chaplin.
Right.
So Jeremy, you being the Chaplin aficionado,
Well,
when you first saw this film, did you see the original 1925 version or the 42 version?
That's a good question. No, I think I saw the 42. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw the 42 version because I bought the Criterion Collection, and selfishly and lazily, I was like, "Oh, there's no dialogue cards. Just let's do that one." Not even realizing that it was the definitive edition according to Chaplin. Chaplin, of course, but really distanced himself from the original 25 version. After The Great Dictator, he realized that nobody wanted to watch silent films. You couldn't put a silent film back into theaters and people would go see it because they think of it as less than. It's now something's missing. Where before, before it was all they had, and it wasn't even thought that there could be sound. But once sound was implemented into films, silent films are yesterday's news. Nobody wants to see it. And so he loved The Gold Rush. He thought it was one of his favorites, and he thought, well, if I want other people to see it and if I want it to live on, I have to change it. So he went in, he redid the music, he re-edited the film using outtakes and other footage. He took out the dialogue cards, he added in narration, and it's the movie we see today. And it is pretty different from the original 1925 version.
I meant to watch the 1925 version after I completed the movie, but a part of me was like, if this is the version that Chaplin considers, as you just said, the definitive version, then maybe I shouldn't, this isn't the right word, but maybe I shouldn't, quote unquote, spoil this version, that this is the version that Chaplin wanted. I mean, later Chaplin realized, like, oh, this is the version I want people to see and remember.
I mean, yes and no, because yes, where it's a complete story and it's easy to follow and it's entertaining and it's a little more modernized for audiences, whatever. But the 1925 version isn't terrible. It's just a silent film. And there is... Sorry, all my daughter said.
Oh.
I know. It's got added more romance between the Prospector and Georgia. Because at the time, Chaplin was married at the time, but he was having an affair with Georgia Hale. And so, obviously, he added in more romance for those characters so they could be in more scenes together and blah, blah, blah. And because they had that chemistry, it worked. Years later, he's obviously no longer connected with Georgia Hale because that was a one-time thing. And he felt that it doesn't fit with the story. He felt that he sort of shoehorned it in, and it could make more sense if there's less of her, and also he doesn't want to think about that time of his life anymore. And so if you want to think about it in rarity terms, the 1925 version is rarer. The rural juror it is harder to come by and was harder to create than the 42 version. The 42 version is like, to put it in terms that you would appreciate, the 1942 version is like the George Lucas edits. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And the 1925 version is the original 77 theatrical release, right? So you had these guys. I watched a documentary on it today, that these guys had to locate and find like movie preservationists, movie archivists, try to find prints of the 1925 version, which were essentially lost because Chaplin didn't do anything to preserve the 25 version. He didn't like it anymore. And he felt that it was obsolete. So they had to scour and find a whole bunch of prints, and it was really interesting because to be able to put it together, I know we haven't even touched on the story yet, it doesn't matter. So to be able to even put it together, they had to splice in what they had plus what they found. And what they found doesn't quite fit in an aspect ratio way because let's say the good stuff they had was the definitive 1925, this is it, right? This is the silent version of it. The silent version
Mm-hmm.
uses the entire 35 millimeter print. However, eventually it was converted to have sound, and the soundtrack, which was added on the side, takes off part of the right-hand side of the screen and condenses it because the soundtrack needs to have room to fit. It can't be longer than 35 millimeter. It won't fit in the projection. So they have to cut and paste the soundtrack on. And so they had to find ways to sort of meld them together and sort of make it make sense and, have it all be cohesive as a viewing experience, which I think is very interesting. All that to be said is that if you want to think of it as like, this is more interesting because it was harder to obtain and is, more rare to find, then the 1925 version might be for you because it was almost lost forever.
Yeah. Well, with all that being said,
right.
I was going to let you finish.
I know.
So what is the story of the Gold Rush? So the Gold Rush is the story of the tramp, but in this story, he's called the Prospector, or in the narration, Little Fellow, which I find very endearing, especially since Chaplin himself is doing the narration. So he's essentially calling himself that little fellow. Anyway, who goes off to into the is it the Yukon Mountains, right?
That's a good question.
Or just say sure. In search of gold, because everyone was searching for gold. And he gets caught in a snowstorm and meets another prospector called Big Jim and a wanted criminal called Black Larson. And hijinks ensues because, of course, anyone who's seen a tramp movie knows that the tramp is sort of a live action cartoon character. And Black Larson is sent out to try to find food, but he leaves Big Jim and Prospector to die. They manage to kill a bear so they could survive the harsh environment. They go their separate ways for Big Jim to go find his gold that he had already dug up, and the Prospector to a town where he falls in love with a dance hall girl named Georgia. More hijinks ensue. Big Jim makes his way back to town and finds the Prospector and says that he's going to be able to help him find his gold again because he lost his place marker. Ultimately, another blizzard comes in, sweeps the cabin that they were staying in literally off the ground. They find the gold, become millionaires, and the Prospector gets Georgia in the end. And that's the Gold Rush.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Well, that's the 42 version, because as now you've said, there's different things in the 25 version. So the 42 version, that's how it happens. But so yeah, that was something watching this that I really caught on to, is that the tramp is essentially a living cartoon character. Having seen City Lights and The Kid, and now this, I would say he's not as cartoony in The Great Dictator, but that was the point. But of course I haven't seen The Circus yet either. I realized, like, Charlie knew exactly who this character was.
Yeah.
Every time he brought him to screen.
Yeah. It's all about, visual gags. And the physicality of the comedy, the physicality of the character. Like the scenes in the cabin, they're amazing. And just the technological tricks that they would pull off. tipping the set so he could, be on an incline and, go in and out of the cabin and, have it be the wind that's pushing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I mean, it's pure filmmaking magic, what they're doing. Because it holds up. It's like they knew it was going to be timeless, or they knew that it was always going to work, and they knew that, it's that no matter what, everyone's going to find this funny always. Or entertaining in general. And maybe you don't think it's hilarious, but even Chaplin in the chicken suit. It is Chaplin.
Yeah.
It was a stagehand originally in the suit, but he wasn't doing it quite right. Like, he wasn't walking and moving the way the Tramp does and the way that Chaplin usually does. So Chaplin just had to end up being in the suit, whether his face be on camera or not.
Well, and again, because after I told you off mic, after I finished the movie, I rewatched Chaplin just because I find it an entertaining movie and an excuse to see RDJ do something different. But I know they had that where he talks about filming the Gold Rush and he's wearing the bottom half of the chicken suit.
Yeah.
While they're like testing out, like moving the set and, so yeah, I would believe it that he really was in the chicken suit because it did feel very much like how the Tramp would move. And of course, that's the point.
Right.
Is Big Jim is seeing the Tramp as a giant chicken, which is also very cartoony. Yeah. I feel like we've seen that in so many cartoons after this of, two people getting stuck in a snowstorm or starving, and the other person envisions the other person as like
food.
Food. Yeah.
And speaking of that, that shoe that they eat was made out of licorice.
Okay. Yeah. I told Ashley, I was like, that's the one thing that I'm like, how did they pull that off?
Yeah.
Like, because it's not just like a gag where they're like, they take a bite and then, they cut and it's gone. Like, no, they're like eating it.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, maybe it's like cake or fondant or something.
Licorice.
That's really funny.
Yeah, it really fucked with their stomachs, man. I can't imagine eating that much licorice. Oh, Jesus.
I know, dude. I know, man. Yeah, like I can have like 2 Twizzlers max and then I'm good. Yeah, and eating a whole licorice shoe bottom. God, dude.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
But that's see, but I was like, how did they do that? Because it legitimately looked so real and so like real. I mean, realistic. So
yeah, I mean, it looked like leather. I don't. Yeah, it's like they had to find the right edible material that resembled. I guess they're lucky that it wasn't anything that tasted terrible.
Yeah.
Depending on how you feel about licorice, but it could have been way worse. I remember, to use a more modern example, I was watching like a featurette when Mad Men was really popular, and they were talking about what they drink, and because they're always drinking on the show, and
yeah,
for hard liquor it was like iced tea, or I guess just tea. There's no ice, depending on if they had ice or not. And then like flat soda sometimes worked, and then like water. But for the vodka, and that's what I forgot his name. It doesn't matter. One of them would drink vodka all the time, but to have it be the right consistency, it couldn't be water. And I'm trying to remember what it was, but it sounded disgusting. Like just vile, that he had to like drink this over and over and over again. It just seems so gross to me. And now the story is going nowhere because I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't water and it was gross. I remember that. It being like olive juice or something. It was gross, whatever it was, or like onion something.
So what you're saying is Charlie and the actor playing Big Jim having to eat licorice, it could have been worse.
Could have been way worse. Is what I'm saying. Now, I think I teased this last week, but speaking of, it looks so real. Even the opening, not the opening, the very beginning, which is an actual on-location shot of all of those extras going up the mountain. Real, by the way. Not, there's a lot of extras that are going up. Again, sometimes, it's hard to imagine just the amount of work and the scope and size that things used to be. I think we talked about it on Metropolis, where you just can't imagine just the amount of work and size and scale that some of these sets were, or that all of these extras had to be there for, and you just can't wrap your head around it because you're just like, that doesn't make any sense to my modern brain because of how much that would cost or how long that would take or whatever. But then it was like, what's the other option, Anyway, so the opening shot of him walking around the corner of that mountain, and him almost kind of, him sort of leaning over the edge, another glass shot, or matte painting on glass that's in front of the camera, and it's seamless. I can't get over how good it looks. There are several of these shots that are glass shots, but I think the most impressive for the time and for now probably would be the double exposure shots of them, like Big Jim when he's on that patch, or is it Black Larson, who's on that sort of patch of ice that splits open, and he's on the other side of it, right? Incredible, right? And then, of course, I think the pinnacle, the peak of technological achievement and filmmaking achievement in this movie is the miniature cabin and them double exposed next to the cabin. It's unbelievable. You can tell they're not really there. Who cares? It's amazing that Chaplin just thought to do that. That he thought to film it. Let's film them. Let's stack them on top of each other, and let's run that, and then make that one print. So it's he used a 5-pack camera to do this, where the camera takes two reels of film, put them, superimpose them, and then use that to film some of these scenes, and it's just incredible. Especially the use of editing and timing, and the puppet, the little bitty Chaplin puppet that's hanging off the end. The cabin is so good, and intercutting it with the interior of the set. I mean, it's perfect. I mean, it's classic filmmaking. I mean, this is like, it's no different than what anybody would do today.
Well, and I was just about to say, for the time and the timeline of his filmography, at least of what I've seen, would you agree with me saying that this is his most technical film? Like,
for the time, absolutely, in his career, because The Tramp had been in The Kid in 1921, and then he did A Woman of Paris, which he's not in. What year was that? Maybe 22? And then people loved The Kid, okay? And they were just begging, like, we need more of this character. We need more of this Chaplin, character. And so That's when he did the Gold Rush, and it's like he spared no expense, he spared no brain power. This is technologically amazing. I can't imagine seeing it, in 25 with all of these people and them just losing their minds about what they're seeing. It's got to be like, what we see when we're watching, like, I don't know, anything of that size and scope. I can't really think of a good example. I don't want to say Nolan because that's an easy answer. That's, whatever. That's sort of cliche. But you know what I mean. It's like seeing something you didn't think was possible for filmmaking. And I don't know, like, yeah, it's not seamless or it's not perfect, but I mean, for the story and for the time, it's unbelievable.
It really it really blew my mind because again, we've done City Lights, right? We did City Lights for the show.
No, we have not done City Lights.
We haven't. So I watched that on my own volition. Wow. I know I watched The Kid of my own volition.
Yeah.
No, that's right. I did because you kept like, dude, you have to watch City Lights.
City Lights,
like,
yeah.
You have it now. Watch City Lights. I was like,
City
fine,
Lights
I'll watch City Lights. Dude, City Lights is amazing. Ashley was kind of half paying attention while I was watching Chaplin. And they make a lot of, obviously they show a lot of stuff from City Lights. And I keep like leaning over to her. I'm like, God, City Lights is so amazing. But yeah, man, I forgot the point I was making. I just gushed about City Lights. I guess I was talking about the technicality. Yeah. Because, City Lights is, of course it makes sense that he wouldn't do, taking more risks like he did with the Gold Rush of, the double exposure and things like that. Because City Lights that story doesn't really need any of that. Like,
again, I don't think he's doing this for spectacle or for, flash or anything. He's doing it because, well, this is what's happening in the story. How do we show that? It's the same in, modern times when he thinks of this funny bit of him on the roller skates. He goes, well, how are we going to do that? It's just, it's ingenuity when necessary. And in City Lights, it's not as necessary because it's more of a grounded story, of this romantic comedy and, with hijinks. With more, I would say with the Gold Rush and with the cabin sequences, I would say that's more big stage magic. And with City Lights in modern times, that's more close-up magic.
Okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So kind of
modern times has the gear sequence, which is incredible.
Yeah. So I did want to talk about, I wasn't expecting the love story aspect of the movie. I did think the whole movie was just going to be him in the cabin.
Yeah.
The whole movie. Not saying I probably should have prefaced this. I very much enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
I guess it was refreshing to see that even Chaplin was like, well, the whole story is not going to be in this cabin. It's going to be, the second half of the story is going to be in this town, and the tramp, trying to win the heart of this dance hall dancer.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I really like that for a movie called The Gold Rush. It doesn't really look for gold except for like the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yep. He kind of gets sidetracked.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed that, and um, I really enjoyed the kind of I don't want to say the will they won't they kind of thing, because the story almost makes it sound like Georgia doesn't like the tramp, but then we start to see sort of the cracks in the armor a little bit of that maybe she might have some feelings for him.
Maybe.
I mean, she definitely does once he becomes a millionaire. So,
well, of course.
Not saying she's a gold digger or anything, but she was seeking him on the boat.
Yep.
So, but yeah, no, I really enjoyed that. I think I would say, I guess, whenever we do a silent film, I always enjoy when the story takes a turn in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Phantom Carriage, which I tell everyone about because God, that movie was so good.
Yeah.
I love this turn that this story takes, which is you think it's going to be sort of like maybe a buddy comedy. These two guys trapped in a cabin during a snowstorm.
Yeah.
And then Chaplin's like, no, now it's going to become a love story and again, I hate to use the term, but a will they, won't they? And then it becomes a buddy comedy again when Big Jim comes back into the story. And I really enjoyed that,
Yeah, no, I mean, without it, we wouldn't get what I consider to be, I think, what defines Chaplin and his tramp character is humor, is heart, is sort of his humanity, and all of that culminates, to me, I think, if you were to give me an example of this character and everything that he sort of is, or who he represents and what his character, who he is as a person, I would say, oh, you should watch him use the dinner rolls and forks and have them dance, because it's sweet, it's endearing, it's funny. He's trying to impress this girl that he's in love with, and he's doing it through humor, and again, it's whimsical, it's cute. I love it, and it's beautifully choreographed.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I didn't want to have to keep bringing up Chaplin, but I remember the first time I saw that movie, he does that the first time he's meeting J. Edgar Hoover, because he's uninterested in what J. Edgar Hoover's having to say. And now getting to see this, obviously I get to see where it comes from and like why they included it in the movie, which makes sense, because it you're right. Everything you just said of it being whimsical and endearing and cute and funny is so correct, because I feel like Chaplin wouldn't have done it any other way. Wouldn't have had the tramp do anything that didn't fit with the tramp.
Right.
I feel like I just talked in circles there.
No. I think most of his tramp stories have some sort of anchor in a relationship story, or at least a relationship arc. In The Kid, obviously, it's between him and Jackie Coogan's character. It doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, right? Although a lot of times it is. And as they touched on in the movie, Chaplin, that normally it's because he's either dating or having an affair with the actress who is starring in these films. But yeah, I think that makes the tramp character more endearing. That he that he's, a hopeless romantic that is trying to get the girl of his dreams, even though he's the underdog and he's always down on his luck, or he's, behind barriers of impossible circumstance, that he inevitably gets around to getting the girl, right? And in this case, it's more endearing in this version, which I think it's also in the other one too, where he's a millionaire. He's a millionaire, but she doesn't know that, and she still chooses him anyway. That's a nice little touch because it makes her seem less of a gold digger, as you had just mentioned. Because I think that that would have been sort of icky if she saw him on the boat in his fancy dress and his top hat and his nice cane, and said, "Oh well, what a coincidence! I'm also in love with you too." And of course, in the original 1925 version, there was a lot more to do with Georgia and that love story, that love triangle with Jack as well. Jack is sort of like yes, their relationship is more implied in the 1942 version. But yeah, Jack's not really necessarily an antagonist either.
He's just kind of there.
Yeah, he's an antagonist when he needs to be, I guess, or an obstacle when he needs to be. But all in all, he's not like the main villain. There is no really main villain, I guess, besides the elements.
Yeah. I was going to say, if anything's a villain, it's, all the snowstorms that they keep experiencing. I meant to mention a joke that I was not expecting to get paid off was that that Big Jim ate the dog.
Oh yeah.
I was like, no way he's gonna do this, and then the dog comes back in, and I was like, oh, okay, good. And I love that even the chair amp is like, and whistling for the dog, and then the dog comes back in.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I did like that. I love the narration of the whole, Chaplin narrating Big Jack being like, we're going to be millionaires. And then it cuts to, and then they were, it's just, even the narration is so, even by today's standards, is so tight, so funny.
Yeah.
And I like that, much like with Y Tu Mamá También, our narrator sort of omniscient.
Sure.
And but of course it makes sense that our narrator would be sort of knows what's going on in context of the story, because the narration, as you said at the top of the show, is replacing dialogue cards. So
right. And even Haley, before she fell asleep, asked if some of the jump cuts were continuity errors, and I was like, no, that's where the dialogue cards are supposed to be, because they would, you would have this cut with the dialogue card, and then the dialogue card would go away, and then it would just continue with that shot, sort of in a with it being there, it's a little more seamless, I suppose, but with it gone, it's a jump cut. But it's not really out of place in any sort of way. 1920s filmmaking is a little choppier, so it's not it's not too terribly egregious.
I agree. Well, if I'm going to be honest, I never noticed.
There you
go. And it does kind of make me want to watch the 25 version now and see. I mean, obviously the differences, but I guess more like how the story unfolds I mean, because as far as I can tell, it's mostly, and as you said, mostly the same, apart from little things here and there
Yeah,
that either.
mostly I guess in the second half with Georgia, it's more Georgia um, in the second half. Um, the note is different that he receives um, from her, because I think in the 1925 version, if I'm not mistaken, he gets a note from her by accident. Like it was supposed to go to Jack, not him, and so he reads it as if she's telling him this, and then it's a whole misunderstanding sort of narrative, and then it goes from there. Um, and in this one, it's a little different.
Yeah, yeah. And this one, even Jack says, "Your lady friend is looking for you,"
Yeah,
and then he's given the note, and the narration says like Georgia was looking for him.
yeah, no, not at all. It's an interesting change,
Yeah,
and it's fascinating in the sense that with the footage and with it being a silent film, you can sort of manipulate it however you want. You know,
mm-hmm.
changing the intercut of a note, that's an easy change, right? Um,
Right.
there's really no reshoot to be done. You just put in a different still image. Um,
Yeah.
and so it sort of reminds me of how so stupid. So how like this depending on what it is that you're being shown, really a silent film without its dialogue cards um, can be manipulated like how Chaplin did to change the story, even if it's just ever so slightly. Um, it's sort of like how there's a there's a really funny, stupid movie called like Kung Pao, Enter the Fist. Have you seen this? Where they
Of course, I've seen this.
where they take um, an existing martial arts movie and they just change the dubbing,
And digitally insert a new actor. Yeah.
Yeah. And then with this is another really stupid example, but again, it's showing you how if it's just right, you can do whatever you want with these things. C Lab 2021 is a good example.
Dude.
Because C Lab 2020 was a Hanna-Barbera show from the 1960s. C Lab 2021 are people going in and just doing the voiceover again and just taking the existing images and changing the story by changing the voice acting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of an exercise in how do we use these images? Like, how do I use the gold rush with the footage I have and the outtakes I have? How can I change it to the way I want? How can I have it to where it's a simple, easy to understand story that still works with the direction I want to go in? It's fascinating to me that he was able to do that. I don't know why I'm so fascinated by that.
Well, because it is, I mean, we talked about our fair share of silent films, on the show. I know you've seen your fair share. I haven't heard of any other silent film being recut,
Yeah.
not for a modern audience necessarily, but, to keep up with the times, because he didn't do this with any other of his silent films, just this one, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's because I think it's like what you said, that he loved this movie so much that he wanted to be sure that it would live on and, you know, not be forgotten with all the other silent films of the time. Because of course I'm sure he wasn't thinking in terms of, you know, today's standards where audiences now, you know, love the kid and it's revered and things like that. I'm sure he was just thinking of like, well, I loved this movie. I feel like audiences would still love it, but I need to change it so they will still appreciate it.
Correct.
So I'm sure that's a little bit of it. And I'm sure, you know, a lot of other silent films, it's more, you know, they just moved on. You know, those directors or actors are just like, well, you know, everyone's going over to talkies. We'll just move over to talkies.
Yeah. In terms of United Artists, which this was the first movie to get a wide release with United Artists. This movie went everywhere. It was him, Douglas Fairbanks, D.W. Griffith. Oh man, is it Mary Pickford? Who else was it?
Yes. Yeah, Mary Pickford.
He was the last one to still be in the business. Everyone else had gone away because they didn't know how to adapt to talkies, and so Chaplin lasted as long as he clung on for dear life to silent film.
Which is so fascinating.
1936 was his last silent film.
Really?
Yeah, there are sound elements in modern times, but it's essentially a silent film.
Well, you know, which is so fascinating because if I didn't bring it up when I did my solo episode on Limelight, his transition into talkies, it's almost like he'd been doing talkies from day one.
Yeah.
You know, Limelight is so good, and I have Monsieur Verdeau, and I really want to see that. Like, it excites me to see, you know, to see that. So it's interesting that he was so slow to transition into talkies.
He felt that the character, he wouldn't know what to do with the character if he spoke.
Yeah. I will say, again, bringing up Chaplin the movie, that is a part of that movie I really like, of him explaining why the tramp can't talk, that it would take away the magic of the character, and that, you know, now I would like to know if it is true that him deciding to have the tramp talk in The Great Dictator was because of, you know, if he's going to say something, he's going to say something that means something.
Yeah, I don't know.
That'd be cool.
That's I'm sure that's a romanticized version of what happened.
Yeah.
God knows if that's actually what happened. I think another highlight of this film that I don't think Chaplin gets enough credit. I mean, Chaplin gets enough credit, right? But he also scored the movie. I mean, he scored all of it. Yeah. I think a lot of people forget that he's doing the music for these movies as well, and it's great.
It really is. I mean, I hope I talked about it in Limelight, but Smile, dude.
Yeah.
It's such a good song, and I loved the score for this. Again, maybe I now should go back and rewatch the 25 version to hear the different score.
Yeah.
Because yeah, man, I really enjoyed almost everything about the movie. I mean, there wasn't anything that I was like, about. Like, the comedy was so good, the narration was great, the score was great, everything about it was just very Chaplin, you know?
Yeah.
With that being said, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, man. The Gold Rush, incredible, always will be. Chaplin, I haven't seen A Woman of Paris. I need to. I know they just added it to the Criterion Collection. It's one of the few I haven't seen. I'm sure it's great. I just don't know. He's not in it, so it's sort of bizarre that he's not in that one. But yeah, man, The Gold Rush is like a technical marvel. It's incredible and it's funny and it holds up. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I agree, man. I really agree. And again, I'm glad Criterion keeps releasing his films. I know there's probably a lot they can't release, if the negative still even exists, but yeah, I hope they keep doing it, man. I'd love to keep seeing more of his films. But yeah. So Jeremy, with that being said, what are we talking about next week? Because I know that was a bit of a hard decision.
It was a hard decision. There's, gosh, man. I mean, it's tough to decide on what to discuss. And then, I started thinking about, just stuff. Just stuff and things that are going around and happening, and I don't know. So really, I mean, gosh, if anybody's listening, this is for no reason at all. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is just out of the blue, no reason. Let's not compare anybody to anything. We're not doing that. Okay? Next week, we are going to be discussing the 1998 devastating classic. To me, it's a classic. American History X.
Oh my God.
Fuck. Again, for no reason. No one. Nothing's going on right now. Listen, no one's comparing anybody to anything. A reminder would be nice that maybe we should be nice to everybody. Yeah.
So, I have never seen this movie.
Never?
Obviously, I've never seen it. I obviously know of it.
Okay. Yeah.
I know, how infamous it is, in a good way, and also a bad way.
Right.
And I just know Edward got an Oscar for this movie, right?
I don't know if he received the Oscar or if he was just nominated. Let me look. There is some crazy behind-the-scenes drama that happened during this movie, so much so that Tony Kaye, the director, wanted his name taken off of the movie entirely.
Really?
Yeah, Edward Norton really sunk his teeth into this one, for better or for worse. Obviously, the final product is what it is, and I love this movie. I've seen it several times. But Tony Kaye had a different vision of it, and Edward Norton, and I guess people who backed Edward Norton, maybe the studio, felt Norton's version is better. And of course, Norton also refused to shoot certain things. Yeah, a lot of tension, a lot of creative differences, a lot of turmoil going on behind the scenes. Also, huge shout out to Ethan Suplee, who plays Seth in the movie, but he's also in My Name is Earl. He's in Remember the Titans, The Butterfly Effect. Been in a bunch of things. I'm a huge fan. He has gone through a tremendous weight loss. My man used to like push like 500, 600 pounds, and now he's jacked. So good for him. I love Ethan Suplee, have for years, and so I'm happy that he's doing so good. And this man, I can't wait to hear what you have to say once you've seen it.
Yeah, this will be interesting. This will be very interesting indeed. Because I do know how much of a bummer this movie
is. A bummer, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah. Well, that'll be fun. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
But, alright everyone. We hope you enjoyed this episode on The Gold Rush, and we will see you next week for American History X.